Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com. I'm here with a kind-hearted woman named Jessie, who's agreed to share her experience, strength, and hope and wisdom, as well as her trials and tribulations and stumbles and falls, so that you can all benefit from them too. Right, Jessie?
That's right.
Well, first of all, welcome, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's always an honor when people are willing to share like this. If you could tell me a little bit about your story before you came across Defeat Your Cravings, and then tell me what happened, what's changed.
Okay. Well, I think probably like most people, I've had a lifetime struggle around food and I would say food obsession. So for me, I haven't gained extreme amounts of weight and I've kind of white knuckled that to keep it in check. But when I think about it, my whole life I've struggled with food confusion and food obsession. I was not aware of the behaviors around the food, that I thought it was about the food, but it wasn't. It was really about my behaviors around food. Definitely had diet mentality, been on many different diets, and at one point had stumbled upon intermittent fasting. And I think that took my food obsession and sort of lit a Bunsen burner underneath it. And that's how I came to your first program, was that I realized I was sort of in trouble. And all of a sudden I had taken the food obsession and then added all of this sort of binge restrict, fight or flight, all of this sort of additional confusion and problems. And that's how I came to the first program, was to sort of unpack some of that and acknowledge that I had all of these new behaviors and new problems that probably were already there, but that had really supercharged that. So I really used the first program to become aware of what was happening, to dial that back, to get on a better track for myself, but still struggled and still had the food obsession. Was very excited. You had the second program. It resonated with me. It felt exactly like my story. Just so many of the podcasts and the information just resonated. And the second book I read, tried to do it on my own. I read the book, listened to the podcast, and was trying to implement it on my own and had some small success. I think I had good traction, but then had vacations and changes and things come up, and it was like a house of cards that fell apart. And so I knew that I needed to do something more programmatic. And sort of around the same time, I'd listened to one of your podcasts around motivation and why do people come to the program? Why do they stick with the program? How are they successful? Initially, I think I was concerned about weight, obviously, and that was my initial motivator. But then the second go around and really thinking about it, the motivation and allure of being free of the food obsession and being free of the food confusion was so compelling that became my greatest motivator. It really blew the weight motivation kind of out of the way. And the idea that I could actually be free of this food obsession and have more clarity in my life and to give that up was exceptionally powerful. So that's what I did. Also, I knew that I needed more nuanced and programmatic type work. I tried going it on my own, and I needed more guidance and a much deeper dive into sort of my cognitions and how I was doing this. And so that's when I did the intensive program, and I've had a lot of success. It's been remarkable.
Jessie, what a wonderful story. Thank you. Could you talk a little bit more about the insights along the way? So it sounds like you were classically addicted in the middle of a binge restrict cycle. It sounds like we managed to intervene with that, but how? What did you learn that took you out of the diet mentality and helped you to be more present and less obsessed about food? How did you do that?
I think there were a couple of things, sort of like big picture things for me that I came into it. And really, the program is designed to help you with your mindset in this way. And that I think is probably responsible. One was coming to this to just start out with a tremendous amount of grace for myself. From the very beginning, I said, okay, I'm going to give this a full year. I'm going to commit to this, but I'm also committing for a year. So I didn't have this artificial expectation that I was going to try to jam this in 3 months, and then if I wasn't working for me, then I was going to pull and do something different. Definitely just started from the beginning to aim with perfection, but forgive with dignity. That was tested along the way, but at least in the beginning, I had the mindset to give myself a lot of grace, that I wasn't going to know how to do this perfectly and that I was going to make a lot of mistakes, and that was okay. Along with that, the other big piece of that was that I was coming to this from a place of self love and not from fear. And I think that's why I struggled so much for so long and so many years, is that all of these diets, all of the diet mentality, all of the food confusion, all of those decisions were based in fear of gaining weight, or fear of eating the wrong thing, or fear of doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. It was just a very fear based decision making model for myself. And this, I felt like I was really coming to from a place of self love, that I cared enough about myself. I wanted to be free of all of these cognitions and to be free of this obsession, and that this was a decision made out of self care and self love. For me, that felt like a huge turning point and transition in how I was going to approach food going forward in my life. So I think those were very big.
Could you give me an example of how you could tell the difference?
One, giving myself the full year, obviously, and beyond.
Up until that point, when you were immersed in the diet mentality, you were subject to the idea that if you weren't perfect, that you were nothing, that the only way to be valuable was to be thin, and that when you were making mistakes, that it wasn't worthwhile. How would you describe the difference just a little more dimension, if you could?
Sure. So I think that when I came to making decisions about food, the decisions were made out of fear, just like you said, this mentality that there was some correct, perfect way to do it. Here's the standard, and you're supposed to hit this standard. You're supposed to eat this way. Maybe you're supposed to eat at this time. You're supposed to eat this much amount of food. It wasn't personalized to me at all. And so this just completely flipped that. I think the biggest thing that helped was asking myself, how do I want to behave around food? And it just instantly made me aware of the chatter in my head, what was happening, what was confusion, and created this very nice clarity around how I wanted to behave around food. And that felt like it came from a place of self love and not from fear.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I was in charge. Like, I was making this decision and I was completely accountable to myself. I think another big key part of this is that I was making decisions that were based entirely on me and my needs and what I was observing in my own life. And it wasn't an external kind of diet that was saying, okay, well, you need to eat, this thing at this time or do this thing this way, when a lot of times that didn't make sense for me at all. And it wasn't the way my body responded to food at all. This was a much more gentle approach, moderate approach, and again, like a place of self care guiding me versus fear, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It makes all the sense in the world. When you moved from fear to self love, what else changed in your life?
A lot of it was just clarity. I've had success in the program. There has been weight loss, which was remarkable. But I also feel like there was a lot more self confidence, self acceptance, trusting my instincts, trusting myself to know what was going to be right for me and for my body and in situations. And it's something that I'm still giving myself the grace to explore and unpack as things come up. So I have a pretty good plan in place, but things come up. And so as they come up, I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's examine that. And I ask myself immediately, is this how I want to behave around food? And if there's any kind of chatter going on, then I know, okay, well, here's something else that I need to explore. I'm not afraid to do that or be afraid of the fact that things are coming up, because they should. I'm trying to think. At one point I had extinction curves. I try to see, like, oh, okay, this is hard because I'm probably in an extinction curve, and then I back it up and try to figure out what it is that is the extinction curve. For example, I made a decision for myself that I'm not going to eat the sides. I have kids and we'll go out and they'll want chips with the meal or bread or whatever. And I just decided I'm not going to do that anymore. And it was kind of difficult the first couple of times to say, oh, I'm not having that. And then I realized, oh, it's because I'm in an extinction curve. But it doesn't happen very often. So I didn't know it was going to be generally an extinction curve because I was just observing this is not how I want to behave around food. So it's sort of like those kind of programmatic things that come up, and I'm giving myself grace to kind of work through as they happen. I'm in that sort of refining phase, which I guess could be 10 years long or like decades to refine this thing, but that's okay.
You're getting better and better, and that's the whole point.
Exactly. Yes.
You mentioned a couple of times that you had to correct some cognitions. You changed your thinking. I understand changing thinking from fear to self-love. What other thoughts did you have to change?
Being aware of the choices that I'm making in the moment. And I find that my hooks and the things that I'm telling myself, those have changed. So as I'm developing and I'm getting stronger in certain areas, I find that the hooks have changed, and the things that I say to myself have changed. For example, in the beginning, hunger is not an emergency. Hunger is not an emergency. Hunger is not an emergency. And then I would move on to, okay, you only have the present moment to be healthy. I've got to make these choices right now in the moment. You only have the present moment to be healthy. And then it would be refining it like the kitchen is closed. Or we got to the section of the programming where I would have a daily ritual. It was like I would take a moment to just ask that my food be nourishing to my body, that it would be enough to be nourishing. And then as things come up, I just find that different hooks and different cognitions and, figuring those out, they change. So I guess that's more of like the smaller cognitions.
What do you want people to know who are feeling lost and frightened and not sure if they could fix this for themselves, either on their own or with the program? What do you want them to know?
Well, I think you're in really good company if you're feeling that way. I think most people that are here feel that way. And there is a food obsession component to this, that the confusion, I call it confusion, but the incessant thoughts or what am I eating? How am I eating? What am I eating? That kind of fear-based thinking is completely normal, but it's not necessary. There's a better path and it can be done. I, for a very long time, didn't acknowledge that in the back of my mind, there was still a voice in there saying this probably isn't going to work given your age and stage in life as a woman. And my coach, Yvonne, was an excellent role model for me, saying, oh, no, that's not true. That's a myth. And it was kind of floating around in there, even below my consciousness of what could be possible and what couldn't. So I exposed that and then also proved it wrong. So to be afraid is normal, but if you give yourself a lot of grace and approach this from a place of self-care, and that you're doing this to care for yourself in the long term and your well-being, then you can do this. Anybody can do this. You just have to be willing to look at your food behaviors and willing to go through it and take the leap. But the leap is really a leap of faith in yourself, and it can be done. That's really all you need.
Lovely, that's so helpful. Is there anything else that I should be asking you that I didn't ask you?
Probably, but I can't think of something.
That's great.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.